Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.
Hello, I'm Maura Carlin. Welcome to The Local Live, LMC-TV's news magazine show. With me are Jackie Grosha and Mike Witsch.
The Local Live brings you news focused on Mamaroneck, Larchmont, Rhinebeck, and our surrounding communities.
LMC-TV is your TV station. The Local Live is your news show. Do you want to help? Well, visit LMC-TV's website, www.lmctv.org, and get involved. And here's a preview of this show.
Historic freeze brings danger to the homeless. We tell you what you can do to help. If you missed the last Mamaroneck High School board meeting, we've got the highlights. Tired of staying home this winter? Extreme Archery is in the spotlight. And for the sports fans, we have the best play of the week.
Let's start with our top stories. We were put into a deep freeze when temperatures dropped to single digits. While most of us stayed warm at home, there were many who went for help at the Oasis Emergency Shelter in New Rochelle. Project Manager Larry Mosley said they had to stay open longer than normal to accommodate everybody who needed help.
Usually the shelter is only open from 9 at night until 7 in the morning, but presently because of the extreme cold weather, we have been staying open for 24 hours around the clock. Unfortunately, we can't continue to do that, so once the weather gets a little bit warmer, we'll be forced to go back to our regular working hours. Oasis is a co-ed shelter for men and women, and right now we're currently assisting between 50 and 60 to 65 people each evening.
What can the community do to help?
Well, mainly we ask for donations of food, clothing, and any other donations that they think may be useful to people who find themselves in the position of being homeless. You can call us at area code 914-633-0101, and you can ask to speak to myself, Larry Mosley, or my assistant director, Orville Barrow.
The Housing Office of Westchester County has shelters in Peekskill, Yonkers, White Plains, and New Rochelle, which is the one closest to our community.
The January 7th Mamaroneck School Board Meeting brought us news about new technology in the school. The use of iPads in the classrooms was a highlight of the night.
That is, what do you hope to get out of it? That it's an improvement over the pencil and paper.
Being able to see something rotate that I couldn't show them, but now they can see it like on a video, or they can see it and they can move stuff around themselves on the iPad.
I think we've talked about engagement. I mean, part of the piece here is that, like anything else, is how do we, think about our instruction, whether it's with technology or not, that engages and keeps students connected to learning. And, that's part of this issue.
I think that I personally really like the iPad, and it's helped me improve, and I can use it really wherever I am for all these different reasons. But I think that with the teachers' help, if we can together kind of stick either for a teacher to use it or not use it and kind of pick what they want to do, will help us be able to stay organized, which will help us improve.
To see the entire Mamaroneck School Board meeting, visit LMC-TV's website, www.lmctv.org, and click on Video on Demand.
Local Martin Luther King celebrations are beginning. On January 9th, the Larchmont Mamaroneck Human Rights Committee and the Mamaroneck School District are hosting a special jazz performance and poetry reading by artist Holly Bass. Executive Director of LMC-TV, Erik Lewis, has an interview.
Martin Luther King has always been a big inspiration, as has Langston Hughes. And what I find in their writing is that whether we're talking about the 1920s or the 1960s, some of the issues are still very much the same and very relevant, which is about working people and people of different ethnicities and races being given opportunity in the country of America, the country we all live in. When we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr., I think what we're celebrating really is American culture and American ideals. And so as an artist, it's important for me that not only does my work speak to those ideas of the dream, of equality, but also that the audience reflects Martin Luther King's dream. So when we can bring different age groups and different ethnicities and different cultures together, that actually is the best representation that we can show for Martin Luther King Jr. and his work.
January 12th, the Larchmont Library will host the presentation of the 27th Annual Martin Luther King Awards, honoring former Mamaroneck Village historian Gloria Pritz, and the Larchmont Mamaroneck Counseling Center. Celebration starts at 3:30. And now let's go to Mike and his In the Media segment.
This week, everybody was talking about the Arctic vortex. Ooh, it was cold outside, but I stayed inside and I looked through our local media outlets and I did find some items of interest. The Mamaroneck Review reports that the village industrial area may be in for a makeover. Just a square mile, the village of Mamaroneck is applying for a study grant and then looking to form a citizens committee. The full story is in the January 3rd edition, along with the news item that the intersection of Fenimore Road and Fayette Avenue has been renamed Vincent's Place. The Board of Trustees did this to honor the founder of Vincent's service station that just celebrated 50 years in that location. From the Larchmont Mamaroneck Patch, Catherine Parker was recently sworn in as a member of the County Board of Legislators. She's a former Rye City Councilwoman, and she represents our 7th legislative district, which includes the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Larchmont, and a portion of the city of Rye. Parker's predecessor, you may remember, was Judy Myers, who retired. Mamaroneck voters approved the budget for their village library. The count was 159 in favor to 38 against. As reported in the Patch, 4 library trustees were re-elected for new 3-year terms: Lori Gursky, Joseph Vosa, Stephen Warner, and Susan Feitler. Joseph Germano was elected for a 3-year term on the board. While Larchmont's outdoor farmers market is now closed for the winter, Mamaroneck's indoor farmers market is open. The Patch reports, as well as Mamaroneck View reports, that Mamaroneck's down-to-earth winter farmers market will have more vendors than ever. It'll be open on Saturdays from 9 to 1 through May 17th. It's at St. Thomas Episcopal Church on Boston Post Road at the corner of Mount Pleasant Avenue. The Loop, as well as LMC-TV, reported that local events in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. will take place soon. The Weary Blues, Jazz and Poetry on January 9th features the poetry of Langston Hughes set to the jazz of Charles Mingus. It starts at 7 in McLean Auditorium at Mamaroneck High School. On January 12th at 3:30, the Larchmont Library hosts a book discussion with Barnard professor Jonathan Reeder. That will be followed by the presentation of the Tri-Municipal Human Rights Committee Martin Luther King Jr. Awards, going this year to former village historian Gloria Pritz and the Community Counseling Center. And Karen Weisberg got her photo plus a video on the Journal News' website this week. Why? Well, all because she rides a bike to work. She's one of an estimated 630-something people in the lower Hudson Valley who ride their bicycles to get to work. In Karen's case, it's an orange-color Le Monde 11. She rides it into Yonkers, where she works at the Consumer Reports. Even in the winter, when commuting can mean risking a ride in the dark, an assault of sleet, or a slide on black ice, Weisberg says, "Us bikers, we're crazy a little bit." Look is on display in the Larchmont Library. It's the name and the theme of Jeff Moraber's show in the Orrisman Gallery, now till the end of the month. Says the library's website, the show reflects the artist's perspective on the interaction of the psychic inner world and the physical outer world. And that's In the Media for January 9th, 2014. I'm Michael Witsch. One late-breaking story in the Mamaroneck Larchmont Patch is that 4 local eateries were cited by the health department for serious infractions. I was able to contact 2 of them. They didn't know much about it, and they said that anything that happened to come up had been cleared already. Let's take a brief break, and coming up next, we have our first Reporters Roundtable. Stay tuned.
Hello, Mamaroneck. I'm Carly Rose, and you are watching The Local Live.
Welcome back to the Local Live, your hyper-local news magazine show. Not only do we cover the community, but we want you involved. We think of it as our field of dreams. If we build it, you'll come. Participate in our roundtable discussions, feed and report on stories, and volunteer with this show. Our discussion now is the first of what we hope will be a recurring roundtable with the reporters that cover Larchmont, Mamaroneck, and Rhinebeck. Joining Mike Witsch and I are Ashley Helms from the Mamaroneck Review and Suzanne Samin from the Mamaroneck and Larchmont Daily Voice. Thank you for joining us. Mike, I'll let you get in the first question.
All right. Well, you talked about covering a community. So, Ashley, let me ask you first. What does that mean? What does covering a community mean?
Well, at our paper, we have a certain amount of stories you have to do per week. So for us, it's about 5. And you go to a lot of municipal meetings. We do events too. And you try to build sources. That's probably like the most important thing, is building sources that'll tell you things without going to meetings. So you'll kind of have things before other people know. And that kind of gets people to pay attention. It's a lot of work because usually you're the only person doing it, which is good because then you don't necessarily have competition. But you get to know a lot of different people, and you get to see a place that, for me, that I've never had seen before I started working around here. So
you learn the community while you're covering.
Mm-hmm.
And Suzanne, do you have like beats that you have to get in touch with every week?
Sure. We basically at the Daily Voice, we do kind of a locational system. So I cover about 6 municipalities, and Mamaroneck and Larchmont are 2 of them. So, we kind of cover everything, whether it's sports, schools, government, restaurants, anything. And so our coverage is basically getting into the communities and seeing what people are doing. We call people, we have community advisors who we've established, whether it's the mayor of a town or, the PTA mom who's been doing it for 25 years. And she knows everything about the school, everything about the kids. And we try to keep in touch with those people so that we've established a network of newsmakers within our communities.
Is there, since you cover other communities, is there anything that's unique about this community as compared to some of the others?
Sure. I definitely think one of the biggest things is the amount of local businesses. That's the one thing I notice a lot about Mamaroneck Town and Village and also Larchmont.
A lot or a little?
Quite a lot of local businesses. I also cover the bigger cities. I cover Yonkers. I was covering New Rochelle for a while, White Plains, and those places have local businesses too, but there's something about the smaller areas where, everyone knows each other, and a lot of the businesses are owned by people who live in the community, and they're not necessarily franchises, so they develop their own individual reputations. They, kind of do things their way. And, small businesses are really awesome to report on because it's really cool to see people putting themselves out there and trying to provide their neighbors with a service. And I think that happens a lot here.
What about issues in a community? Do all communities have the same kind of issues, or do our communities, are we unique in some of the things that are big stories?
I would say a lot of communities have similar issues. Budgets are always an issue. Taxes are always an issue. No one likes taxes. I think the issues that are esoteric to these communities in particular, a lot of them have to do with the waterfront. Because you guys have your waterfronts and you have your harbors and your beaches, and that's a big draw to your communities. So that's definitely a unique thing that you guys have going on. Along with New Rochelle and the river towns as well, they have those issues, but some of the landlocked, if you will, communities don't. And then I would say that in these towns, issues that might go under the radar at big cities, whether it's road construction or, someone has a problem with, a school taking too much space or something. Those things are a lot more magnified here because when something happens in these places, it kind of is like a ripple effect. Everyone is affected by it. Whereas in the cities, sometimes, half the population doesn't notice this one big thing that's going on.
What I was going to say, Ashley, I was going to actually move it backwards to 2013, since we just finished a year. What do you think were the big stories from last year in this community?
Okay, well, I wasn't covering it up until about August, September. So I think some of the bigger stories that happened while I got onto the beat were there was a sewer line break at Jefferson Avenue Bridge, and that happened before I started covering the beat. But when I started, it came out that it had leaked a lot of raw sewage into the water, so there was a huge amount of concern over environmental issues, over the quality of the Sound too, because the Mamaroneck River flows into Long Island Sound. There's a similar problem at Mamaroneck Beach and Yacht. Those clubs, a lot of people have been very concerned about what's going on there with zoning issues and things like that. Concerns that Hampshire will want to build condominiums on the complex over there. Recently, this woman, Manuela Margado, who unfortunately murdered her son, she was back in court. She actually didn't appear, but her lawyer did, and the case is progressing, so she'll probably be going to trial soon.
Did that alleged murder happen in 2013?
It was in 2012.
It was, okay. I couldn't remember.
Right. So she did plead not guilty to it, but I guess it'll continue. And yeah, so I've only been on for a few months, but a lot of things will come back around. Parking is always an issue. Flooding is always an issue. A lot of things with building different structures will come down to if it's going to affect things like that.
And of course, it was LMC-TV's 30th anniversary event.
Yeah, I was there actually.
I know you were. That's why I mentioned it.
Did I meet you there?
We did briefly.
Maybe,
I think
yeah.
so.
It was nice.
But I had to throw that in. What about you, Suzanne? What do you think were the top hits of 2013?
Well, I have a similar situation in that I began covering Mamaroneck in June. So I was kind of only on board for about half the year. I know what I did notice as I was coming onto the beat was, because it was the summertime, was a lot of environmental issues with the sewage, as Ashley said, and also with the water quality and the beaches being a big problem. I talked to a lot of residents who said, all the beaches are being closed so much now, and I want to have my family over, I want to have my friends over, and they're not taking care of the environment. So that's a big thing. There was also a pretty big fire that displaced about 200 people in November. I forget exactly where, but that was definitely a big deal. But I think that the local government and also the Red Cross really stepped up and helped out those people, and thankfully most people were able to return, so that's good. And what else? Oh, there was the rabbi who worked in Larchmont who was impersonating a police officer. That was a very interesting story out of this area that caught at least the state press attention.
Right, that's probably unusual.
Yes. One would hope it's very unusual. But those are the things that come to mind right now.
Let me just jump ahead then, instead of looking back. What do you think might be the stories that you would expect to hear from in the next several months?
In the next several months, well, a lot of the things that I think of when I look to the future are kind of on a county basis, but those things obviously can greatly affect the municipalities as well. One of those things is, looking to see if Rob Astorino decides to run for governor. That's going to be quite a big situation.
And you see that rippling down?
I see it rippling down everywhere, I think. I don't necessarily, not that his duties or that his responsibilities as county executive would be affected, but I think, when there's a big election and when a county has a stake in something, people will want to get involved. There'll be a lot of opinions, and there's always, during election seasons, there's always such a greater sense of civic responsibility and civic purpose that I see in my communities that I cover. People getting out there and spreading the word about issues they care about, because the energy radiates down and it motivates people. So I think that'll be a big thing. I also think that, flood mitigation and, as I said, the environmental issues will also definitely come to a head this year as it did last year, hopefully.
We've been covering around here flood mitigation and those exact same environmental issues for most of the time I've lived here, which is now just about 20 years. Do you see it coming to some kind of resolution?
I think, well, unfortunately, I think a lot of it has to do with climate change, and I think that these are suburban communities experiencing climate change in a way that maybe they didn't expect, because when we watched an Inconvenient Truth or something, it's about the polar ice caps melting and the polar bears are going to die and all these things, and in Mamaroneck or Larchmont, you're not thinking about that really, and so when you see your water levels start to change, when you see your environment start to change, that's when people start to freak out. And I think that the conversation has become so amplified recently, especially with talks about neighboring Rye Playland and navigating that and how we're going to develop these areas and keep people who live on the shores there and not disturb the peace too much.
Do you see? I'm going to ask this of both of you. Do you see these issues bringing the different communities together or tearing them apart?
Bring together, I would think. I think there's definitely a sense of that in Westchester. Some places will be more affected than others, but I would have confidence that people in more higher ground or in places that aren't bordered by the ocean, basically, that will come out and, would help people in Mamaroneck or other low-lying places near the water. I think there's a good sense of community in Westchester. That's something I've noticed since I've been working here, and it's nice.
We also wanted to ask you what you saw as the big stories as we go into 2014.
For Mamaroneck, I haven't been looking that far into the future, I think, but I'm also going to start to cover rye again. We also have a rye paper at my company, and I was covering there for a little while, and I'm going to start up there again. And they just elected a new mayor and re-elected a couple new, and actually elected for the first time a few new council people. So that'll be interesting to see what happens over there with that changeover. And that's about it. I mean, I look for things. Also, what you were saying about playland, the agreement with sustainable playland in the county, some county issues as well, but not too much that I see in the very close future, I think, in Mamaroneck. Maybe I haven't been here long enough yet.
It strikes me that you're both so young. And I know that, in fact, you're not too far out of college.
Right.
And yet you're in a fairly responsible position of reporting. Is that a lot of responsibility, or do you really get off on that? So to speak.
Let's see. It's definitely a lot of responsibility. When I first entered this position, I was covering 3 of the 4 largest municipalities in Westchester County, along with Mamaroneck and Larchmont, and also Pelham. So that was a whole lot of responsibility dropped on my lap at once. And I was also kind of the main correspondent on the county executive election. I really threw myself into it very quickly. Is it a lot of responsibility? Sure. And I'm learning every single day, whether it's, understanding what things in the town, in the community, or like the, what am I looking for? The town council agenda mean, what the budget means, different things that I learned in theory in college, but putting it into practice and understanding how it affects a community is entirely different. So it's overwhelming, but it's a challenge that I try to, stand up and respond to every day to the best of my ability. And when my readers contact me and say, hey, I wish you would do more of this, or hey, that's great, do more of that, I try to really listen to them and take it to heart.
So you really do want the input from your readership to know what they want to learn about.
Oh yeah, I think so. And it's nice when people email you and tell you that you're doing a good job too, or like people you don't even know will say, oh, I read your paper and it's great and things like that. And also, yeah, you do want feedback from people so they know, what they would like to see. We kind of follow, I wouldn't say a formula, but we kind of hone in on certain issues or more hard news and think we don't do a lot of events and our articles are a little bit longer. So I think people kind of know what to expect too when they're reading our paper. I don't get as much suggestions as what to write about as mostly just feedback on particular articles.
Well, you mentioned a difference just between you right now. You're in print. Mm-hmm. The Mamaroneck Review is paper in print, whereas The Voice is all electronic. It's an e-newspaper, so to speak.
We have a website as well, but yeah, it's mostly print-based as well.
So what are the differences? Is there an advantage to having print?
I think
being in print?
In this area, I think so, because I think a lot of people still read it, and that's what they like here too. But I guess they say it's a dying craft, but not around here, I would say. But having a website and having a print newspaper is nice too, so you can kind of reach everybody.
Are the articles different depending on whether they're in print or online?
No, they're the same. We just take what's from print and we put it on the website.
What about you, Suzanne?
Well, it's funny. I mean, hopefully print is useful in this area because the Daily Voice is coming out with its own print edition. We're coming out with a weekly in both Westchester and Fairfield counties. I think that's going to be an interesting change for us. The differences between web and print journalism, I think, for us, we know that studies show that people online tend to look at a site on an average of 2 seconds. So that means that you have 2 seconds to inform someone as to why they should spend time on your website. And that means that our leads have to be really something special, and our headlines have to draw attention to what we're doing, which is not to say that print doesn't do that as well, but we try not to make our articles over 350 words because studies also show that people won't read past that point. And so I think that in that way, it's a disadvantage. When someone goes to pick up a print publication, they're ready to sit at their coffee shop or, on their front porch and really pour through that stuff and read the articles they're interested in. When you're online, you want to make sure nothing's blown up and no one's dead and everything's fine. You're checking the news in the morning, am I going to have some kind of big problem? And, and some people don't even look at the website. Some people go to our Twitter, some people go to our Facebook, and then it's 150 characters that we have to explain to someone what's happening around you and in your life. And so I think that's the biggest difference, is that we have to fight a little harder to get people engaged.
When you were studying this, were you aware of this? Were you trained in the differences between expressing the news online or in print? Ashley, let me ask you that.
My school was mostly SUNY Purchase. I went to journalism school there. It was mostly print-based, I would say. It was kind of a little bit more, not like a little old school, yeah. We had professors that were old newspaper professors and some that were on TV, like ABC and stuff like that too. But it was mostly print-based. We did a lot of social media work as well too. And for a class that I had, I think it was journalism too, so it was a required class. We had to maintain a blog. That was like an assignment, so that kind of pointed us in that direction a little bit. Personally, I don't really like blogging. Maybe I'm more of a print person, like through and through, I don't know. But I definitely update our website and I know how to do all of that stuff. But it was a little bit more of an old school approach, I think.
And what about you, Suzanne?
I definitely also came from a primarily print-based program. Most of the professors that I had, some had some TV and radio experience, but my university was trying very hard to integrate online journalism into what we did because they knew that that was the pathway of the future, and if we didn't know how to use the internet to our advantage, we would be incredibly disadvantaged when it came to the job market. So I know our school newspaper, which a fun fact is actually the oldest continually running school newspaper in the country, which I actually was amazed by. But we have a website that we update as well, and there was never a difference between what we put in the paper and what we put on the website. But in our classes, we touched on it a little bit. Before graduation, we had to have an online portfolio, showing our clips and, our social media accounts. And, definitely, I wouldn't say we immersed ourselves in the web. I think a lot of it was focused in print, but there was definitely some instruction there.
I'd like to ask a subject matter question. I recently, right before the holidays, went to one of the coffees with George, Steve, and Catherine was there, our state senator, assemblyman, and the new county legislator. And what was interesting to me was that there were a couple of people who wanted to talk about the Playland and sustainability initiative, and they were not very happy. I would say 85 to 90% of the people there wanted to talk education and Common Core. Is that something that you're hearing? I mean, I was surprised at just how concentrated it was when this was open to discussion about any topic.
If I may, I've definitely.
Go ahead. We're going to get to both of you on this one.
I've definitely encountered some issues, some people upset, specifically educators. I know that I attended two separate rallies. One was in the Westchester County Center in White Plains, and one was at Dodson Elementary in Yonkers, where teachers were coming together with state senators and local politicians and mayors to really talk about. New York State pushing the Common Core.
And what was their, I assume, objection to it?
Their objection was that it was brought in way too fast, and that the individual focus on students was being replaced with test score intensive, result oriented curriculum, and they felt that they didn't have the resources to appropriately. I guess I don't want to say enforce, but appropriately integrate the Common Core standards. They didn't have the time or necessarily the funds or the, training, to do that effectively. And they wanted to kind of give education back to the children, as it were, and focus more on their needs as opposed to trying to enforce a standard across the state.
Was there also something about using those tests for teacher evaluation that they felt was unfair at this point? As a retired teacher, I have to say that? Or?
I'm sure there was. I don't remember hearing that point made exactly, but I have read about that before.
What about you, Ashley? Have you heard a lot about this?
I have. I've been hearing a lot about the system in particular that collects student information, including their discipline record. And a lot of people are really upset that that's going to be stored and available to third-party people, and that could affect people's future.
That seemed to be the push of the parents who were speaking.
Right.
The teachers were more concerned with how to implement it, but both groups were concerned with the amount of testing.
Right.
But yes, the privacy issue was huge.
That was huge. I've been hearing a lot about that mostly recently, over the past couple of months. I'm not sure if that has to do with the beginning of the school year, but yeah, I've been hearing a lot about that. I have been hearing about the testing is more about really very strictly testing students, doesn't really show their ability in the classroom, and that people learn different ways. Teachers are having a hard time preparing students for this when there's testing very continuously. So I've been hearing a lot of different concerns, but those are like the few main ones. Most people I've heard are not very happy about it. So
Have you heard of anyone speaking out for it?
Not really, no. To be honest.
Commissioner King, yes, he speaks very heavily.
Mike, I am going to take the liberty of taking the last question, and I'm going to pose it to each of you, which is, who are the people we should be looking to for newsworthy stories in this coming year?
I think both of them.
Well, I meant
of course.
Newsmakers. I meant newsmakers.
Okay, newsmakers.
Yes.
Let's see.
In our community, of course.
In your community specifically. Well, your county legislator is definitely a place to start. I think that I know that you're talking specifically about the community, but the county legislator is going to be doing some legislature. Yes, are going to be doing some interesting stuff this year. I think their new bipartisan effort is going to be, I think, something that will definitely change how things are done in Westchester County. Obviously, look to your mayors. Your mayors do a lot of hard work, and they work tirelessly day in and day out. The time that I've spent with the few mayors that I their municipalities who I cover, they really are committed to their municipalities and they're committed to their communities. They're out every day, and so they're fantastic.
Is there someone we haven't heard of that you think is going to pop up?
Someone you haven't heard of?
And actually, you start thinking about it also, is there?
No. You're asking them their secret sources?
Well, no, I wasn't asking that. But
can't reveal those.
Okay.
You're out of luck.
That's locked up.
Yeah.
Someone you haven't heard of.
I guess we're going to have to wait and read your publications and see who you come up with.
And we'll have to have them back.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
We'd like to thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes.
We've got Suzanne, Samin, did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, from the Daily Voice, Larchmont and Mamaroneck, and want to tell us the website?
Sure, it's mamaroneck.dailyvoice.com.
Okay, and that covers both Mamaroneck and Larchmont?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and we have Ashley Helms from the Mamaroneck Review.
Right.
Which is mailed to people, and you want to tell us your website address?
Sure, it's mamaroneck.hometown.com, and the hometown doesn't have an O in town, so it's just TWN.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now
you can say that.
You can add television to your list of accomplishments. You've got print, you've got electronic, and now you've got television.
I like to be back.
Good.
I'm excited.
We'll have you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I love your outfit.
I love your outfit.
Thank you.
We're on the local live here at the Westchester Tattoo Convention. And you are?
I'm Catherine.
Hi, Catherine. This is Jerry here reporting live from the local live.
Do you recall the Longfellow poem, I Shot an Arrow into the Air? Have you ever wanted to shoot an arrow? Are you a big fan of the Hunger Games? Our own Sheyla Navarro shows you how you can release your inner hunter right here in Mamaroneck.
Are you tired of staying home this winter? Get out and see what's going on in Mamaroneck. We're here at Boston Post Road, right in front of Stream Archery, and we're going to try something new and fun to do.
As soon as we walk in, we were welcomed by David Deschamps, who introduced us to a war that we're used to see only in the big screen. David's background, masking an expert.
Well, bows and arrows are very specific to the shooter. Each bow has to be set up specifically to each person. We could pretty much set anybody up whatever they're looking for, beginner or an experienced shooter. We can help anybody.
Even though we're just beginners, we aim high and we trust David to teach us shoot like Katniss Evergreen.
Well, this is one of our recurve bows that we give our lessons with. They get shot every day by all different people. It's a beginner bow. They're the simplest to use, but probably one of the hardest bows to master.
Is there like a specific age where anyone, should start learning?
You could learn at any age. Kids have to be at least 10 years old to come and shoot here. Mm-hmm. But we give a lot of lessons to 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, boys and girls.
Mm-hmm. Are these heavy?
No, it's not heavy.
Okay.
No, not heavy. Anybody can use them. They're easy to pull back. We have different sizes for the kids that come here and shoot.
So how long does it take for a beginner to learn how to shoot?
It usually takes just a couple shots to get on the target. That's it. It's not very hard. Anybody could do it.
I mean, but for some people like me that are always glancing and shaking, maybe it would take like 10 lessons.
Yeah.
Just before we were going to start our lesson, we had to stop David because one last bulb caught our attention.
This is a crossbow.
I've seen this in TV. I guess they use it to kill zombies, right?
Yeah, they do. We stock crossbows here to sell to hunters. You're not allowed to shoot them in our range, but if you do want to buy one, you can come in and buy one, and I'll show you how to use them.
So we're behind the counter right now where we have a whole variety of different arrows. And I chose this one because this is my favorite color. So tell me a little bit about the kind of arrows that you have.
Well, depending on what kind of bow you use, you're going to have an arrow that matches it. So depending on what draw weight and how long the arrow is going to be, that's how you determine what arrow you're going to choose from. And we have different arrows, all different colors and camouflages, so that you could choose from whatever.
So for beginners, would this be a good arrow?
Yeah, it's actually a beginner arrow that you picked there, yep.
We definitely love the colorful arrows, but no more excuses. Now it's time to meet what makes them Best of Westchester 2012.
Right now we're in our indoor range. This is where we give our lessons and where people come to practice during the day.
Okay, so you're going to teach me how to shoot.
I'll give you a quick lesson, yeah. Point to both the target.
Oh, it needs to be straight?
Yeah, there you go. Now pull back, put your pointer finger right in the corner of your mouth. Your pointer finger. Your elbow up. Your pointer finger right in the mouth. Pull back.
Okay, now?
Pull. Let go.
Okay, now what do I do? I just leave?
Yep, let go.
But this is happening.
Let go.
I'm afraid.
Good.
No, this was really bad.
We bet you can do this 10 times better than us. But what matters is that now you know that Mamaroneck owns the only place in Westchester County with an indoor archery range. For the local live, this is Sheyla Navarro signing off.
The LMC-TV sports program covers over 75 high school varsity games a year from Mamaroneck and Rhinebeck high schools. From field hockey to swimming to basketball and football, LMC-TV's cameras are there to capture the action. The sports producer, Rob Moretti, has this week's Best Play of the Week.
Trying to win it, and now Torrey down the other way with numbers pass out in front, scores!
Quick start from Mamaroneck as James Torrey to Matthew DeSico for the Mamaroneck goal at 15 seconds. I don't know what Shep said in the locker room, Sam, but it worked.
Thank you, Rob. To watch the entire game and other Rhinebeck and Mamaroneck games, visit our website, lmctv.org. When we come back, let's see who we caught up with on the streets in our open mic segment.
Dude, there is a bunch of zombies outside. What? There are zombies in the front lawn. It's Z-Day.
Well, what do we do?
Let's check out the news.
I'm here on Halstead Avenue, where the Mamaroneck Police Force has already begun to crack down on the zombie menace. Get out of my shot! Residents are advised to stay inside, lock their doors, and wait it out. Back to you in the studio.
Looks like we're gonna be okay.
Mike, do you have a New Year's resolution?
I actually do, Jackie. I want to reduce my circumference.
Well, let's hear what people set out on the street.
My New Year's resolution is to exercise more.
Lose 10 pounds.
Well, as to get a scholarship.
An internship for my career, which is guidance counseling.
This concludes this edition of The Local Live. We are a community news show, and we encourage you to be part of it. If you're interested in being a reporter, a producer, a camera person, or an editor, contact us, lmctv.org.
Don't forget to give us your comments or stories you would like for us to report. Just type in The Local Live and you will find us on Facebook and Twitter. Bye and have a great night.
And stay tuned for our next show.
Goodbye.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.